Gives me pleasure to introduce Tein to us all. I'm sure she doesn't need much of an introduction, but Tein is better known as a restoration practitioner. She trained as an artist in the 1970s and inspired by the beauty of the Australian bush. Horror at seeing its destruction caused her to shift her creative efforts towards environmental restoration practice in the late 1970s, but she's maintained some level of art practice since that time and is more recently exploring crossover practice between the two disciplines. Please welcome Tein.
Thank you, David. I feel a bit of an imposter, but I don't know whether my restoration work is imposing itself on my artwork or it's the other way around. But at this stage of my life, I've become very interested in making sure that I can realise some of the things that started me off on this journey. So this is an example of a painting that I haven't finished it. I started it 20 years ago, but I haven't had time, to finish it. So it's a painting on canvas. To give you some idea of scale, it's about 1.2 metres tall. But these paintings, I'm re-engaging with this process and doing more paintings now, and they document the restoration sites. They document sites of value to me, whether restorations occurred on them or not. And they document the experience of, in this case, at Day1 Reserve in Evans Head, the experience of saving the site. We worked long and hard to conserve the site and stop it being cleared for a golf course with local communities, including Aboriginal communities, and then collaborated in healing the sites. And so that's documented here, as well as the effort to recover custodial relationship with place. So, Indigenous people have been able to engage now. Now, what intrigues me about all this is that in this age of sort of conceptual art and post-object art and environmental art, what is the work? Is it the painting, or is it the actual work on the ground, the project you're engaged in? And this intrigues me so much. I'm really toying with the idea of our actual restoration work being an art practice. And so I may be wrong, but my goodness, it's fun trying. So these paintings are kind of painterly, they're pretty and have an aesthetic quality, and they're representative. And then, I play a little bit in the actual in the earth, and with bits and pieces of found objects. And even these, though, are not necessarily art for art's sake. They're representative of a restoration process. So the sticks represent, the laid branches on the ground to resolve some of the erosion because of overgrazing, and the blue dung is actually dung of animals that are overgrazing the site. So, even this, there is some representation. But when you actually get into the works, the restoration works, it's unpainting, It's leaving no marks. The intention is to actually collaborate with nature to reinstate a relationship, an appropriate relationship. And it's a healing, and it's a creation of beauty. So we're actually, the intent is actually not to have a distinction between this site and a natural site. We're removing the impacts. So even this sort of map of the condition of sites over time with its lovely varied mosaic patterns, that will all disappear as the site recovers health, and it'll just look a boring green. But the reality is, we've got a beautiful site and a relationship with it, and the experience of actually doing it. I encourage my colleagues and myself. We do leave a signature. So the works are signed. The signatures are ephemeral, of course. They do disappear. but they're meaningful to us. And we want to convey this to people, that this is a special ritual that we engage in, that we would like other people to see can move you like a work of art. So we do that with each work we do. And what we're pointing to is the main factor that causes the degradation. It might be overgrazing, it might be weeds or other factors. Now, there are precedents to these blue objects in nature, and I didn't know about this one until recently and started looking around to see whether there was a context for any of this in the art world. This is not a YouTube video, I'm not going to play it. It's the work of Konstantin Dimopoulos, who worked in over 24 cities. He was commissioned to paint these little copses of trees blue, and the objective was to create an art event. It was participatory, and it drew attention to the plight of deforestation around the world. So it had a political message. Reading about it is really interesting, and there are a couple of clips on the web that you can learn more about. And what I found particularly interesting was that people stopped and participated, including, homeless people. There was no, it was a great leveller, this art. Whether you're an upper crust, orchestra goer or a homeless person, it's still valuable. There's beauty there in the traditional art way. And I think also it's connected very much. I think we should see clearly that there is a tradition in contemporary art of breaking down the barriers between art and life. Now, Joseph Beuys is famous for this. His intention was to encourage us to see, the frame wasn't important. We need to move out of the frame and start to bring art into real life. He was probably pushing the boundaries really to an extreme extent. But here, that previous slide, that had these basalt plinths that were exhibited in the gallery, but his real work, he said, was this one. It was an assemblage, an installation of basalt stones that they're arranged there in the bottom right-hand side in an arrow pointing to planted trees. Now, his project was planting 7,000 oaks, native trees, to this German city. And one of those stones was placed as a marker for each of those plantings. So, this is in the years when Greening Australia was already planting thousands of trees. So it was a fairly kind of literal thing for us to be doing, planting trees. But what he's saying is this has a different special and ritual significance. One of his serious ideas is that everyone is an artist, but it does have complications, and so we need to be aware of that. The time might not be here yet for all of us to participate as artists, as we all may have, in our Indigenous cultures. So when we were Indigenous people with our solid, we were able to participate as artists, all of us. But these days, it's a little different, and it's largely different because of sort of politics and culture. The green trees are actually, someone just did that as a frivolous act, and the city considered it, I forget the word, it doesn't spring to mind, but it's a copying of an artwork. The image in the top right-hand corner is an image of blue ribbons that were tied to trees in a copse in a city, and they probably looked beautiful, and they were there to support the police during the Black Lives Matter marches. So, there are complications about it. It's not the colour or the art itself, it's about the ideas. And this is what Paul Klee understood, a very much loved 20th century painter, and he worked for the Bauhaus, at the Bauhaus, and he understood art was bigger than the paintings or the sculptures or the buildings. He says, sometimes I dream of a work of really great breadth, ranging through the whole region of element, object, meaning and style. This, I fear, will remain a dream, but it's a good thing even now to bear the possibility occasionally in mind. Nothing can be rushed, it must grow, it should grow of itself. And if the time ever comes for that work, then so much the better. And this is often quoted, but what's not often quoted is his closing remark, which is, we still lack the ultimate power, for the people are not with us. And that certainly proved to be the case during the Bauhaus era. So small p politics is part of the contemporary art discourse and has always been. So I don't know how much time I've got left, David, how much? Because 5 minutes, oh dear. I wanted to say something about the work of Badger Bates, who as an artist dedicates his life to saving the Darling River. It's called the Barker in their language. He's Barkindji person. And he is a visual artist, does a lot of beautiful prints that are represented in galleries, collaborates with other artists, in this case Justine Muller, and the Wilcannia Aboriginal community. See this one, it's just a little hanging piece of, say, mussel shells from the dry riverbed, and he's carved some of the organisms on those shells, the organisms that are affected by the lack of water, the actual dying of the river. And his colleague created impressions from all the members of the Wilcannia Aboriginal community, impressions of their feet in clay from the river, and made a winding river in the gallery. There's all sorts of wonderful things that have been done, but one of the most interesting lately is this wonderful work called Homily to Country, where the French street artist JR collaborated with Badger and others to make these very, very large, as you can see, photographs on fabric that were cut out and then carried like a funeral procession through the dying river to draw attention to the plight of that environment. And I'd really like to play a video now, if it's possible at all, Michael. As the images move through, they look like flowing water. Thank you, Michael.
Barker is the name of our beautiful river. It is who Barkindji people are. We are people of the Barker. It is so ancient that it has fossils of crocodile and lungfish along it from before people's time. There are fossils of megafauna, giant kangaroos and giant wombats. My people saw giant animals roam the plains, the lakes and rivers. At Menindee, there is a hearth or fireplace what date back 45,000 years. Mussel shell mit.
We might find that the bandwidth's not working or something for this, and Michael, we might give that a miss, but can I commend you to...
Old river.
We'll listen to the next bit.
29,000 years old. We have survived the last ice age around 20,000 years ago, living along the Barker that gave us shelter, water, food, wood for fires, skins for cloaks to keep us warm. Other places were very cold, very dry and windy, but the Barker gave us everything to survive these hard times. The old Barker changed channels around 10,000 years ago with a new channel that was cut. There had been big changes in the climate and the natural world for over 50,000 years or so. But the Barkindji managed those changes and learned to adapt and to thrive. There are areas around Wilcannia and Menindee that became oases of a new river. The old river, the Tallywalker, was an ana branch of large shallow lakes, billabong swamps and springs that came up from the underground. We had everything: freshwater fish, yabbies, shrimps, mussels, turtle, birds and bird eggs, seeds to grind, starchy tubers, yams, nuts and fruit. In the winter, greens everywhere. We worked the grass seeds, the acacia seeds and ground them up in our big large grinding dishes for porridge and for bread. We have fished and swam in the river. We had times to look after the country and to sing the country, and we know our country and it knows us. We depend on each other. When the settlers came, they wanted to have it all, but we survived on our river. Because of our river, Barkindji never left our lands. We are still here, we love our land and it loves us. We have stories that explain the creation and how everything works, so we know how to look after it. We have aquifers to fill deep water holes in the river so the cod can survive and other fishes. Billabongs to keep plants and animals safe in dry times. Then they let go into the river when a flood comes and it seeds the river life again. We know that the floodplains must flood for the little things to breed, which wash back into the river and feeds the river, feed the fish and other animals. Nothing is wasted and everything has its rule. We have seen it all disappear because of big irrigators up north that have stolen our water. The catfish went first, then the blackbit, the mussels all died, the river snails went a good while ago. We don't see any birds, water spiders, water rats have gone, the water goanna have gone. There will be nothing but silence and dust. For 5 years, the river had been dry as a dog's bone, a dry river with no life. But wait, I say, stop all the killing. The barker is ours, we are the barker. We must make changes to save it. We must throw off the chains of corporatisation to save us all.
So you can't really do better than that as a statement. Okay, so how's our time? We're out of time. That's probably pretty good because I don't want any questions anyway.
One or two questions probably for Tein, if anyone has any. Might go on then to the next.
Yep, sure. We've still got a little bit of time, have we? Oh, there is one question.
Thank you so much, Tein. It was a wonderful presentation. I'm curious, the bark is flowing, and I wonder if there's going to be some follow-up artwork to go with that as well.
Yeah, because it's not just the short-term patterns, is it? It's about the long-term patterns. So this will come again. You know, the problem is still there. Now that video was released a couple of weeks ago, I believe. So you should be able to find it and share it with your friends, because that's the purpose of the artwork too. I found it very affecting myself. Yeah. The story's not over. Yeah.